As Alsa stood at the head of the table, he explained that while talent is necessary for magic, anyone can learn swordsmanship if they have the time and money. The students sitting at the table did their best to pay attention. Some listened to Alsace, while others argued. Alsace continued to explain but was interrupted by Choi, who loudly placed his empty cup on the table, demanding another drink. Alsace advised him to stop drinking as excessive alcohol consumption reduces efficiency. Choi is annoyed as he wanted to become stronger and faster and thought himself to be different from the others. Suddenly, a butler appeared behind his chair and offered him honey tea to clear his mouth and help him feel better. Alsace told him about the importance of consistency and suggested he have 1 cup a day, or perhaps 2 if he was greedy. Choi nervously picks up the teacup and declared that he would drink 2 cups a day. Then Alsace explained that the blessing of a warrior cannot be achieved in a short period, just like a child can't turn into an adult overnight. However, if they maintain their determination, they would be able to achieve their goal in less than a year. Choi was shocked to learn that it would take so long. Then suddenly, he received a system notification stating that he had received a new blessing, Grit F, which would make him stronger and mightier the longer he fought. The effect would be reset as soon as he was defeated, or his will to fight was broken. At that moment, a certain god of war proudly remarked that it was unimaginable, while another god of martial arts just snorted. Alsace congratulated Choi for receiving the god of war's recognition and continued to teach about how to hide the status window. Meanwhile, Hansu followed the werewolf for a couple of days to observe the power of the meat. The werewolf kept attacking him whenever it got the chance. However, Hansu easily defeated it and asked the werewolf why he's so weak despite being level 6. To this it replied he is not weak, it's Hansu who is abnormal. Annoyed, Hansu hit the werewolf and told it to show him the way. As the werewolf guided him to the village while eating meat, Hansu learned a lot from them. He discovered the location of the fairy's village, who had previously ambushed him, and confirmed the village chief's story about the past. He also learned that every time werewolves consumed meat, their strength slowly rose from their stomachs, causing changes in their bodies. This method was much easier than the village chief's black magic. Suddenly, the werewolf went berserk and attacked Hansu. However, by that point, Hansu had already learned everything from the werewolf, including the power of the meat. He then thanked the werewolf and easily slays it using this newfound power. A certain god is surprised to see the changes in Hansu and says that it's the power of meat. Hansu is also surprised by this new power. However, he understands that if he hadn't had the outsider blessing outsider, he would have died, as the new power uses life force, and the outsider blessing creates a loop that resets from the beginning when his strength is depleted. But he thinks it's cool. Afterward, he kept on wandering and defeats many werewolves on the way, eventually reaching the fairy village. He was planning to tunnel through the back, but decided not to, as the security was too tight. Then the certain god kept on kicking him, and told him that now was the right time to go. Hansu follows the instructions and jumps through the wall using his dagger. Then, he assassinates some guards but doesn't feel anything. He understands that these people probably have families to mourn their deaths, just like he has a family, and he almost died without ever seeing them again because of these guys. Hansu is becoming colder. A certain god doesn't like the development. After slaying some more, Hansu is confused because he only sees mercenaries and not a single fairy. While he's thinking, he hears people talking and sees humans moving captives who have bags on their heads. Meanwhile, Esoppresso was sleeping, but she was also caught and taken to the basement where they were held captive. Then she hears the voice of the healer who had healed her earlier. It seems that the villagers want revenge for Crimson, the village chief's death, and they think that if they let the fairies leave, they'll take their home and family again. Then they begin to slaughter the fairies, starting with Esoppresso. All fairies dies except one, Celebliss. They couldn't decide whether to end her life or not, as she is high in the hierarchy, and they'll face consequences if they were to do so. Celebliss also understands their reasons. However, planning to murder Hansu, who is her savior, is unforgivable. They offer to let her go if she keeps what happened here a secret. However, she refuses. The guy raises his sword. She closes her eyes thinking it's her end. But suddenly she hears the commotion and opens her eyes and sees Hansu. Hansu recognized her, but first he dealt with the remaining villagers. He noticed the healer running and swiftly threw his dagger, causing her demise. Celebliss called out to Hansu, but he didn't understand her. She then showed him her stats, which surprised him as he had only one blessing while she had 3 high-ranking blessings, especially the Tamar A. Nonetheless, he didn't understand her motives for showing her stats, but he was able to learn her name and called out to her, to which she nodded and smiled. However, a certain god felt uncomfortable and urged Hansu to remain an outsider. Despite the potential punishment, Hansu decided to help Celebliss, as she had an experience similar to his. As she tries to stand, she stumbled and was about to fall, but Hansu caught her. As they are escaping the village, Hansu noticed that it was too quiet and asked God what could be the reason. However, a certain god was not in the mood to talk to him. So he decided to get rid of the fairy to ease God's anger. But he couldn't trust the villagers, and the forest was full of werewolves. So he left the village sprinting while carrying the fairy. Suddenly she pointed up and said something. Upon looking up, Hansu saw a phoenix. The phoenix landed in front of him, and then Celebliss told him to put her down, which he did, thinking she wanted him to leave her behind while he ran. However, that wasn't the case. Instead, she approached the phoenix and tamed it using her blessing. Then she said something to Hansu and kissed him, shocking a certain god. Hansu was about to ask her motive, but she jumped on the phoenix, said something to him, and left riding it. A certain god didn't like the scenario and brought down divine judgment on the sinner by pulling his hair out. Hansu says that he's upset as well, because it was his first kiss. Suddenly his stats open up, and he receives a new blessing, Fairy C, which increases his lifespan and youth. Additionally, all the effects and favorable comments he receives from the fairy are drastically amplified. Hansu quickly understands that the blessing fairy and outsider are similar, but if he were to use both of them together, he can burn a tremendous amount of lifespan and increase his meat power. However, the certain god was not happy with this development, so Hansu says that he's happier now that he has parted ways with the fairy, which makes the god happy again. Meanwhile, Prince Alsus brings the students outside and explains that today they will increase their levels by hunting monsters. And for their first hunt, the knights will draw the monster here. Princess Athena explains that for mages, blessings are absolutely necessary, and leveling up also increases the blessing's rank. The students are excited about this fantasy-style hunting. One of them notices a slime and rushes to attack it, but is stopped by Alsus and Athena. They explain slime is a beneficial and harmless creature, as they eat all kind of filth, trash, pest, and corpse. Then Alsus explains that today they will hunt level 4 werewolves. Some students show concern as they are only level 1, but Princess Athena assures them that even if they were to die, the Saintess will revive them. And the hunting begins. The students rush to attack, but the werewolves easily defeat them and injure the student's eye. Then one by one, all the students get defeated. The black-haired girl tries to use magic, but she couldn't, and also meets her demise. At that moment, Alsus steps in and eradicates all the werewolves. Some students are badly injured, while others have died. Then, the Saintess appears and uses her power to revive them from the dead. She wants the heroes to fight with every last breath they have, and every time they die, she'll revive them. Choi manages to defeat a werewolf and reaches level 2, thanks to his new blessings. One is acceleration, which helps him move swiftly in critical situations, and the longer it's used, the longer the cooldown. The other command, which enhances the abilities of any group he leads. Mion also reaches level 2 using her blessing Charm, which she uses to charm other guys into doing tasks for her. Because of that, some girls look at her with annoyance. She also receives a new blessing called Color of Beauty, which frees her from ungraceful acts and psychological phenomena, and ensures her physical maintenance is perfect for her. Upon seeing the boys having fun defeating monsters, Choi's teammates switch teams and join Mion's team. Choi then teams up with the other girls who are on bad terms with Mion, all while the gods watch their interactions. On the other hand, Eubora tries to hunt alone and is attacked by a werewolf. Even the gods pity her for being alone. However, she uses her magic to defeat the werewolf and also reaches level 2. She then receives the blessing Martial God, which turns her body into a powerful weapon in all situations, and any weapon she possesses will be restored. While she's distracted, a werewolf attacks her. She quickly uses her new blessing and defeats it, reaching level 3 in the process. After slaying thousands of werewolves, Hansu checked his stats over and over while fighting and even received a curse, Slaughterer E. but he finally realized that he couldn't level up. For some reason, a certain god felt uneasy about this. He thinks that he can't level up because of Goddess's curse. A certain god was acting suspiciously and trying his best to avoid Hansu. He then checks the curse he received earlier, Slaughterer E. This makes friendly races slightly fear him and find him appealing, and increasing the chances of them opposing his cruel actions, which makes him a complete outsider. But a certain god is happy with that. As Hansu is checking the loot he received from the monsters, the werewolves called out from behind intending to take revenge. Among them was a level 9 werewolf. They rushed to attack him and tear him apart, but he easily defeated them. Afterward, he looted every single werewolf and collected a bag full of gold coins. But he couldn't sell them, as he didn't understand human language. While he was thinking about where he could find a translator, a human-looking person called out to him, understanding his language. Hansu rushed to the guy and grabbed him by his collar, asking who he was. The guy replied that he was a demon. Hansu was a bit confused because he thought demons were very powerful, and that's why the goddess summoned them. But this guy looked weak. Upon hearing this, the guy burst into tears and said that he wasn't weak. Instead, Hansu was abnormally strong despite being level 1, which the guy learned using his blessing to check Hansu's stats. The guy also mentioned that he is a dark mage and currently looking for a marriage partner. A certain god urges him to ask the demon more about his personal story. He did so by simultaneously shaking him, which annoyed the demon. The demon then tells him that the stronger a demon is, the more partners they can have, but he is weak. So he ran away as he didn't want to become the 243rd husband of an old demon. Hansu shows his pity, which annoys the demon again. He then asks Hansu how he's moving, as he used a lot of paralysis potions, which pissed him off as he had a similar experience with the village chief. The demon then tries magic to bind him, but he easily breaks free and asks about his relation with the village chief, to which the guy replies that he helped the village chief when he was on the verge of dying, as his backstory was heart-touching. This makes Hansu angry, as he didn't have a pleasant encounter with the village chief. Meanwhile, the saintess informs the group that the other students have given up, and the remaining funds will be allocated to the remaining students. Suddenly, a knight arrives with news of a level 5 werewolf sighting. Considering that some of the heroes have attained level 5, the saintess seizes the opportunity, believing it will offer valuable experience. The students prepare for an attack, but as they approach the werewolf, it swiftly closes the distance, launching a fierce assault. While everyone is injured, Yubora attacks it using her flame magic, but she is also defeated and thrown at Mion. Mion uses her blessing Charm to buy some time. Then Alsis came to the rescue and swiftly slays the werewolf, saving them. However, today's event left Mion traumatized. After badly beating the demon, Hansu tells him to take him to the city or he'll beat him again. After healing himself, the demon refuses to take him to the city, as there is a very powerful saint there. However, he offers to take Hansu to the city next to it. Hansu agrees because he also doesn't want to be in the city where the goddess saintess resides. As they head for the city, the demon informs Hansu that the city entrance is restricted by knights, so they will have to go through identity checks. However, it will be difficult for him as he is a demon. Hansu is pissed off as he had a hard time due to the language barrier and curses the goddess, while a certain god is having fun. In the meantime, the pink-haired girl is angry with Oh Hanwoo for his lack of knowledge about the world, yet aspiring to become a mercenary. Despite her anger, she has paid for his armor, weapon, and the inn in the past 2 days, leading him to believe it's due to his blessing, special. She tells him to be careful as they are in the territory of orcs who are stronger than werewolves. Oh Hanwoo confidently agrees, while the immature god and the wind god pay attention to him. He is slime rank, which is the lowest rank among mercenaries, but this grants him the mercenary blessing, which rewards him with extra experience points upon quest completion. Failing or giving up would result in a significant loss of experience points. Their quest requires collecting werewolf ears, but they haven't found any werewolves. The girl suggests going to the guild for information, but Oh Hanwoo refuses. Suddenly a werewolf attacks him from behind, but he manages to dodge. Then 2 more werewolves appear from behind and throw rocks at Oh Hanwoo, knocking him unconscious. Upon waking up, the girl informs him that she took care of the werewolves but lost an arm in the process. Feeling responsible, Oh Hanwoo checks his stats, hoping his blessing can heal her arm. She reassures him that it wasn't his fault. Misinterpreting her forgiveness as an effect of his blessing, Ohanwu gets angry at the gods who find it amusing. In response, they curse him, preventing him from peeking at things and increasing the chances of his secrets and weaknesses being revealed. That shatters his dream of traveling with beautiful girls. The girl advises that they leave the forest as it feels ominous. Ohanwu decides to seek help from the saints in the city, promising to fix her arm. Meanwhile, the demon introduced himself as Kogmos, the 23rd child of the 348th wife of the 14th demon king. He preferred to go by his nickname Mos, given to him by his girlfriend who became the 425th wife of the 7th demon king. Although Hansu felt sympathy for Kogmos' backstory, he didn't think Kogmos had it as hard as him. He then informed Hansu that they would be able to leave the forest soon and warned him not to let his guard down, as they would be passing through orc territory. Kogmos then spotted many orcs, and they were also able to spot him due to Hansu's glowing red eyes. Although he could hide his eyes, he preferred not to, as they provided him with clear night vision, which he used to assess the orcs' numbers. He then approached the orcs in hopes of conversing with them, but was disappointed to find they were not intelligent. He took out his dagger and easily defeated them, while Kogmos lay on the ground with his legs burning with white flames. He told Hansu to look up, and as he did, he noticed a big white dragon. Kogmos informed him that a saintess was riding the dragon and had attacked him from a distance. Although injuries like this meant little to a demon, injuries inflicted by a saintess took longer to heal. He then asked Hansu to carry him, and although Hansu initially declined, he eventually agreed. As he is walking, Hansu told Kogmos that he had almost become a hero, which shocked him. Although Kogmos had seen the curse hero, he didn't think much of it, as these curses were given to demons when they lost to a hero. The curse made it difficult to level up, making it impossible to take revenge. Kogmos was confused about how Hansu could have gotten this strong despite having a blessing like Outsider, which was more like a curse than a blessing as it reset everything including his stats. A certain god let out a sigh and reminisced about the past. In the temple, the students are frustrated as they keep losing. Then, a knight came and informed Prince Alsus that all the werewolves are annihilated by an unknown culprit, and after analyzing the scene, they discovered that only one person had done it. Just as he was about to say something, Ohanwu arrived with a pink-haired girl demanding to meet the saintess. Princess Athena recognized the girl and asked what happened, and as they are conversing, the saintess arrived, disappointed that Ohanwu was still level 1. She checked the girl's stats, in which her name is Arya, and she had a blessing called Nobility B, indicating that she might be a duke's daughter. However, that wasn't enough for the saintess to heal her hand. Ohanwu argued that Arya had protected him with her life, but the saintess pointed out that the knights had done the same, so what made her an exception? He then attempted to use his blessing special, but the saintess easily nullified it. She told him that she received many valuable treasures for her healing abilities, while he couldn't give her anything, and tells him to return after becoming stronger. Eubora raised her hand and asked if she could take Arya as her comrade, and the saintess agreed as she had potential. She then healed Arya's hand, and Arya thanked Eubora, while Ohanwu was left alone. He was approached by Princess Athena, who thanked him for bringing her childhood friend Arya into the temple, and chose him as her second disciple, resulting in him receiving the blessing Magic, and makes him believe that she had a crush on him. He then decided to continue his journey. After defeating many orcs, Hansu takes their sheep and ties Kogmos with them, as he can't always carry him. After a complete recovery, he asks Hansu to untie him, which he does, and asks him how he's hiding his horn, to which he replies that he used a magic spell to hide it. They then notice a carriage being attacked by a group of orcs, but instead of helping them, he decides to watch for now, as he still can't trust humans in this world. The carriage is surrounded by orcs, and 2 girls come out of it. One of them uses fire magic, while the other uses swordsmanship to attack the orcs. Hansu decides to help them, as they look like elites of this world, and getting on good terms with people like them would make his life easier. So, he uses his curse to call out many orcs, but it won't affect humans as they won't understand him. Although a certain god advises him to let them die, he persists in saving them. The orcs notice him beside them and quickly attack, but he easily dodges their attacks and defeats one of them. As he dodges the other orc's attacks, a red orc rushes to attack him but is easily defeated. The soldier thanks Hansu for saving them, and he is able to understand it because he has been learning the human language from Kogmos. A certain god feels uncomfortable with his outsider actions and proposes him to let everyone die. He ignores that and continues to attack the orcs. After defeating all of them, Kogmos informs him that everyone is shocked by his actions. Hansu then asks him to do something about it, so Kogmos introduces himself as a mage, and Hansu as a swordsman from a different continent, so they don't suspect his language issue. One of the girls points out Hansu's curse, Hero, which Kogmos assures her that he's not a demon, and that he also has the blessing Fairy Sea, an amazing symbol of trust, considering that even humans who marry a fairy are E rank at best. The girl then apologizes to Hansu, which makes him happy as he managed to secure a good translator and finally gains people's trust. But a certain god feels uncomfortable and dislikes the development. He then tells the god to calm down and shares his secret of being impotent. The god cheers him up, but it's his fault to begin with, as the outsider blessing makes all stats return to normal, including that. As Hansu is enjoying the campfire, he is approached by one of the girls from earlier. Her name is Julia. She's a noble lady who attended a prestigious fantasy academy. He's in a bit of a pickle, as he doesn't fully understand the language, meaning he can't understand her. She then shows her abilities and says something to him, which he takes as her asking him to show his abilities, which he does. After seeing this, the girl rushes to him and holds his arm while saying something, but he doesn't understand. Then she backs away and apologizes. Thinking that the aura he had shown is small, he tries with a dagger, but the girl has already left running. Pissed off, he says it's hard to understand a woman's heart, while the god says that an impotent person doesn't need to know. Meanwhile, Ohanwu is restricted from entering the temple. He's a failed hero who left the temple, resulting in him losing all the funds. The priest then offers him 3 choices: accepting individual funds and giving up the hero title, which, if he were to use, he'll receive the death penalty. Returning to training without receiving funds until visible results are seen, or entrusting himself to the temple, which takes care of his life, marriage, and retirement, but he can't exit the temple until death. Ohanwu chooses the first option, signs a contract, and receives funds. He then heads to the slave market, while a childish god king munches on popcorn. The saintess receives the news of Ohanwu's decision. She thinks they'll lose more heroes in the future, and even if they don't lose more, it'll still be troublesome as there is another saintess on the continent. If a battle were to emerge, she would have to deal with it herself. She then inquires about the news of the werewolves being annihilated, and after hearing the full report, the saintess thinks that it wasn't done by some knight or a wandering swordsman, but by someone else who is far stronger. The other girl then mistakenly mentions the Demon King and quickly apologizes. But the saintess also agrees and tells her to investigate and find out if the Demon King is involved. As she was thinking of the possibility of the Demon King, the priest informs her that the information about the hero summoning is leaked. As an academy student saw Hanwu's stats, the academy invites the hero for vacation. Although she is disappointed in the current situation, she can't do anything about it. Then suddenly, a knight comes and informs about the discovery of a bag that belongs to a hero. Meanwhile, as Hansu and Kogmos are discussing about mercenaries, he informs Hansu that if one becomes a mercenary, they receive a blessing that gives experience points for completing quests. Hearing this, Hansu checks his stats to see that the hero curse that doesn't allow him to receive experience points only applies to those from hunting and achievements. That means experience points gained by other means are unaffected. He then asks Kogmos how to become a mercenary. They finally arrive in the city, but Hansu is not happy about the rotten stench at the entrance. Kogmos informs him that all types of people, including mercenaries, gather around the entrance, so it's natural. But Hansu is one to talk, as he smells like he bathed in orc blood. The 2 girls says that they want to repay Hansu for saving their lives, and suggest that he books the same inn as them. He agrees, but a certain god isn't happy about it. Then Kogmos suggests that he should wash up first if he doesn't want to get chased out of the mercenary guild. After arriving at the inn, Hansu is fascinated by the slimes cleaning his clothes. Kogmos then warns him not to steal one, as educated slimes are very expensive and worth their weight in gold. After changing clothes, Hansu and Kogmos come downstairs and wait for the girls. When the girls arrive, Kogmos invites them for lunch, but the girls want to follow Hansu, which annoys him. Hansu is happy that he was able to meet good people in this fantasy world, but a certain god is not happy about that. Oh Han-woo arrives at the slave market and meets his former classmate, who is also buying a slave. His classmate suggests that Oh Han-woo let the slave merchant check his status, as it may lead to a discount if the merchant finds out he's a hero. Oh Han-woo is skeptical, but the guy informs him that the temple won't do anything, as they can't stop someone from checking their status. He then allows the slave merchant to check his status, and the merchant quickly recognizes him and asks what type of slave he wants. Oh Han-woo says that he wants a strong female slave. The merchant shows him a level 17 female slave, but she's not to his liking, so he asks for a strong yet slender female slave. The merchant lets Oh Han-woo choose his slave, and he chooses 3 female slaves. He signs a contract with them, and after paying the full price, he orders them to follow him to buy some weapons. Meanwhile, Hansu is having difficulty filling out the mercenary registration page as he doesn't understand the language and words. Cogmos then incorrectly writes his name on the paper, which he copies and signs for the registration, while Cogmos is dying of laughter. Upon completing the registration, Hansu receives the blessing Mercenary D, because of the girls vouching for his skills. The girls then hand him a quest in which he has to defeat some orcs and bring back their noses. Hansu agrees as he plans to use the girls as bait, while the god asks if there will be another slaughter, to which he replies, "Of course not. This time will be an annihilation." As the quest began, Julia tried to defeat an orc but was counterattacked. Then the other girl, Leisha, used fire magic to save her and told her not to push herself. However, they couldn't help it as Hansu easily slaying many orcs while they couldn't defeat a single one. So they tried to help, but quickly became exhausted, and asked Hansu to take a little break. They were surprised by his stamina as he kept on defeating orcs without breaking a sweat. While the two girls were talking about how amazing Hansu is, Julia mentioned that Hansu is using an unstable swordsmanship technique that could potentially destroy his entire body if he were to make any mistakes. He then took out a book and started learning language. But for some reason, all the words he was saying were either menacing or begging for life. Julia informed Leisha that she is now level 15, and that she would aim for B rank, as it would be difficult for them alone. But they have Hansu's help. Upon hearing this, Leisha teased Julia, suspecting that she had fallen in love with Hansu. After learning a little bit, Hansu called out to the girls to continue their hunt. Meanwhile, in the temple, the knight showed Saint the bag that they found in the werewolves' forest. She then asked the knight if Prince Alsus knows about this, to which he replied that he doesn't. She then threatened the knight that if he were to leak the information, he would receive death penalty. She noticed a badge that had a name written on it, and called her subordinate to learn letters from the heroes and identify the belongings. As the existence of the bag was clearly a mistake of the goddess who was known to be perfect, she decided to cover it up. Her subordinate then informed her about the situation in the fairy village, and after interrogating the villagers, they learned that the person who helped the fairies called himself Outsider. Confused by this, she ordered her subordinate to get a sketch of what the outsider looked like. At the same time, Hansu was learning language from picture books while everyone else was sleeping. A certain god is fascinated by cute picture books. Then Hansu asked where all the other gods were so he could avoid them, to which the god pointed in a direction. Hansu quickly figured out that in that direction might be the saintess that Cogmos mentioned, so he decided to run in the opposite direction until he became strong. God then told him to change the page, which he declined as he hadn't memorized that part yet. God then put pressure on him, making him agree, but Hansu said that it was not the right time as they were surrounded. He then woke up Cogmos and the other girls, then informs them that they were surrounded. Then all the men came out, and their leader told Hansu to hand over his spoils and leave the girls behind. Hansu was pissed as people kept trying to harm him. He then used his curse to summon orcs and rushed at the leader of the group, easily defeating him while others fought with orcs. Suddenly, he was attacked from behind by the leader, but he quickly healed himself with his blessing Outsider, and finishes him while others dealt with the remaining people. Afterward, they arrived at the mercenary guild and handed over the orc's nose to the receptionist. He then shares the proof of quest completion with the girls. They thanked Hansu as with his help they were able to level up. Seeing that even mediocre demon Cogmos had leveled up, Hansu checked his stats, only to find out that he was still level 1. He then turned to God while she tried her best to avoid him. Long ago, living beings discovered an entity that they now called God. They sought the help of God, and through that assistance, gods felt the meaning and joy of existence. However, The number of gods slowly increased, and each had their own way of helping, as if they were competing with each other. Living beings who received blessings from gods grew in different ways, while those who were unable to acknowledge each other fell into conflict and died in vain. A certain god noticed a blonde-haired boy who was dying and asked if he wanted to live. Tearfully, the boy asked to be saved, and God helped him by turning him into a child and giving him to his parents, who happily accepted the boy. God was proud of their result. After a long time passed, God visited the blonde-haired boy and asked how he was doing. The boy, who had lost the woman he loved because he had turned into a child, cursed at the god. The god pointed out that the boy never mentioned any women when he wished to be saved and apologized, but the boy angrily lashed out at God, causing her to run away. She couldn't figure out what she had done wrong. Meanwhile, other gods blessed countless lives, but they all resented the outsider god, though she couldn't understand why. As time passed, more and more living beings viewed God as a tool, so all the gods made new rules and adapted to the new order, except for one god. God noticed a man dying. The man's name was Cain, and he was level 38 with many high-ranking blessings, but he was going to die. Then, a certain god asked if he wanted to live. The man quickly said yes, but God warned him that he would lose everything in the process. The guy accepts it as it's better than dying. God was overjoyed to realize that she was still needed in this world and healed the guy. But in the process, he lost his level and was now level 1. Despite this setback, he did not lose hope knowing that he could always start anew. However, sometime later, he was kicked out of his own team for being level 1. Although he was angry, he still didn't feel anything and advised God to never bless anyone again, as it was a curse that took away something more valuable than life. And he himself would never use this blessing again, even if he were to die. This revelation shocked God, and she finally acknowledged that she was no longer needed in this world. After a long time, God found another dying boy. Now, in the present day, God is worried that Hansu might come to resent her. Hansu was mad, but not at God, but himself for not realizing it sooner and wasting his time slaughtering orcs. God then asked if Hansu was angry, to which he replied that he wasn't and decided to buy picture books for God. Hearing this, a certain god desperately prays, and Hansu asked if it was for his dead soul. God quickly denied it and said it was a secret.